Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Week 1 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. The season officially does kick off on Thursday night with the Cowboys and the Bucs. We've got huge tournaments on Draftkings for this Showdown slate, as you would expect. Draftkings always puts out big tournaments for these kickoff games. We got a Millie Maker $10 entry, $4 million in total prizes with $1 million to first place. So huge contests across the industry. Even like Yahoo's got some big contests for their Showdown slate. We've also got some stuff on Prize Picks that we'll talk about. For those of you that are new here, Prize Picks, they are the sponsor of this video. We've been partnered with Prize Picks for the last few months. I've made a lot of money on Prize Picks ever since I started playing there. Since I partnered up with them, I know a lot of you guys have had success on Prize Picks as well. If you do want to check out Prize Picks, be sure to check them out. Link down below in the description, or just use promo code NOAH when you do sign up, and you will get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Prize Picks is a little bit different than DraftKings, than FanDuel, than Yahoo. You're not necessarily building out a lineup. It's more focused on player props, focused on you versus the projections, basically. So they have their fantasy point projection for just about every viable option in this Thursday night game. You can see all the guys they have listed. If you have a good lean on a certain player's projection, if you think their projection's way too low, then you can take the over. If you think their projection's way too high, then you can take the under. They have that for fantasy score, and they also have single stats. So you could do rushing yards, passing yards, receiving yards, receptions, passing completions, receiving touchdowns. Like, they just have so much available. If you guys want to check out Prize Picks, use promo code NOAH when you sign up. Get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. And throughout the video, we will discuss some picks I do like over on Prize Picks, specifically for this Thursday night game between the Cowboys and the Bucs. But yeah, guys, let's take a look at this Showdown slate. Just before we get started, please, guys, hit the like button. If you are new here as well, be sure to hit that subscribe button too. I will be live streaming on Thursday for this Showdown slate. Probably go live on my YouTube channel, around maybe 1 to 2 hours before kickoff, sometime around 6:30 Eastern. I'll be breaking down this slate with you guys, answering all your questions. So be sure to tune into the live stream on Thursday night. But yeah, let's take a look at this Showdown slate. We'll start off at the top, just kind of go through the entire player pool. We'll first start off with the quarterbacks, since they are the two most expensive options. You got Tom Brady at $11,200. You got Dak Prescott at $10,400. When it comes to these NFL Showdown slates, normally you are going to want to play the quarterbacks. Like, rarely, if you just look at the winning lineups in the past on these Showdown slates, like, normally at least one quarterback is going to be in the winning lineup, if not both of the quarterbacks. Choosing between the two, I think I give a slight edge to Dak Prescott, just because I think he has a little bit more upside. Plus, he is a little bit cheaper as well. The one concern with Dak is that we haven't seen him in a while. Obviously, he only played a few games last year before he got injured. It was a season-ending injury. We haven't seen him in probably like a year or so. So we don't know what we're gonna get from Dak. But when this guy's healthy, he's an elite fantasy quarterback. He's got a ton of weapons in Dallas. Dallas overall, when Dak is healthy, is a really good offense. I know their offensive line is dealing with some injuries right now, but I think we're going to see Dak, go back to what he normally was. He's going to throw the ball 35, 40 times. He's got some scrambling upside. He's not like a great rushing quarterback, but he can run for 30, 40 yards. I like him over Tom Brady. I think you definitely want to play one of the two quarterbacks. It's all going to come down to, how you construct your lineups. Like, if you're playing a Bucs pass catcher at captain, or if you're going heavy on the Bucs pass catchers, then obviously you're going to want to play Tom Brady in those lineups. If you play Amari Cooper at captain, or if you play CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup at captain, then you're probably going to want to play Dak Prescott in those lineups. But for me, you're going to want one of the two. I prefer Prescott if I had to choose, but I like both quarterbacks here. You're gonna want to play one of the two quarterbacks, in my opinion. But then you get down to Ezekiel Elliott at $9,600. Zeke, he's going to be probably a workhorse back once again this year. I'd assume he's going to get 12 to 15 carries. He's most likely going to get all the goal line touches. Tony Pollard is still going to be involved, and I think Tony Pollard will get a good amount of opportunity as the backup behind Zeke. But this is still Zeke's backfield. He's going to be the guy that leads this team in touches, but this is a brutal matchup. Tampa Bay, they've always been pretty stout against the run, especially these last 2 years. Last year, they were basically one of the best run defenses overall. They only allowed 82 rushing yards per game. This is a tough team to run on. It is a really tough matchup for Zeke. In this game, I think I do prefer like the passing side. So I think I'm going to be looking to the quarterbacks and the receivers first before I roster the running backs. Obviously, Zeke is viable, but I don't think he's going to be someone that I really start my lineup with. If I'm only playing one lineup on this Showdown slate, I don't know if Zeke is someone that I'm going to play in one lineup. Obviously, I would have him in my player pool if I was playing like 150 lineups. But for one lineup, I think Zeke's going to be someone I most likely avoid. Just tough matchup, with Tony Pollard in the backfield, potentially taking some touches away from Zeke. I just don't feel great about him in this spot. So I'm probably going to be off of Zeke, but then you get down to the receivers. You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, 9,200 for Mike Evans, 8,600 for Chris Godwin. Both these guys are in play for me. I think I do prefer the Bucs receivers over Zeke, just overall. Evans, he's more of the touchdown guy. Like, he's a guy that they target heavily in the red zone. Had 15 touchdowns last year. It seems like he scored a touchdown almost every week. But Mike Evans at 9,200, big body, gonna be targeted heavily in the red zone. Definitely like him at 9,200. Then you have Chris Godwin at 8,600. Doesn't have the touchdown upside that Mike Evans does, but still is someone that can go out there and put up 100 plus yards. Has a ton of upside at 8,600. I like Chris Godwin as well. It's a really good matchup for these Bucs receivers. This Dallas secondary and just this Dallas defense overall, they might be a little bit better than they were last year, but this is going to be a team we definitely pick on a lot. Their defense was terrible last season. I don't think too much is going to change this year. I know they did draft Michael Parsons in the first round. I don't think that's going to really help their secondary that much though, since he's a linebacker. So yeah, Chris Godwin 8,600, Mike Evans 9,200. I do like both of those guys. But we are going to talk about Antonio Brown, who is very cheap. He's way down here at 5,600. He honestly is probably my favorite Bucs receiver overall. We'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, you could definitely go to Mike Evans and Godwin. They're firmly in play for me on this Showdown slate. But then we get to the Dallas receivers. You got Amari Cooper at 8,400. You got CeeDee Lamb at 8,200. I have some interest in these guys as well. And since I do prefer Dak over Tom Brady just slightly, I'm probably going to, roster more of the Cowboys receivers than I am the Bucs receivers. Not saying I'm not going to play any Bucs receivers, but, if I'm playing one lineup and I'm only rostering one of the two quarterbacks, if Dak's the quarterback that I'm rostering, then that probably means I'm going to be a little bit more heavier on the Cowboys receivers. So Amari Cooper, 8,400, I do have a lot of interest in. Last season he obviously was a little bit disappointing, but you can't really look too much into that because, most of these games were without Dak Prescott. If you look at the first part of the season, though, these first 4 weeks of the season were all with Dak Prescott. 18, 19, 17, 36 DraftKings points. Like, he was elite with Dak at quarterback. 14 targets, 9 targets, 12 targets, 16 targets. That should be what we expect from Amari Cooper, for this season, as long as Dak stays healthy for the entire season. So I like Amari Cooper a lot. You have CeeDee Lamb as well at 8,200. I know a lot of people are high on CeeDee Lamb heading into the season. They think this is going to be his breakout season, and it definitely could be. Between him or Amari Cooper, I think I still prefer Amari Cooper, but at 8,200, no problems with CeeDee Lamb either. Matchup's a little bit tougher for these guys. Tampa Bay's defense is a little bit better than this, or not a little bit, definitely a lot better than this Cowboys defense. But yeah, I do like these Cowboys receivers. Amari Cooper is probably my favorite between him and CeeDee Lamb, just between those two guys. When you look at the price, they're similarly priced. I do give the slight edge to Amari Cooper. But then you have Leonard Fournette at 7K, who's just kind of in like a dead range for me. Like, I don't really have that much interest in him at this price point. He was really good late in the year, like in the playoffs last season for the Bucs. He was kind of their workhorse running back, but it's not going to be that way heading into this season. They have Ronald Jones still. They even got Giovanni Bernard, who they're going to use a lot on third downs. So we just don't really know what kind of workload we're going to get from Leonard Fournette. And at 7K, I'm kind of fine just avoiding him on the Showdown slate. I think he will be very low owned. Sure, he could, randomly fall into a couple touchdowns at the goal line or something, but Fournette just feels overpriced. This is going to be a Tampa Bay backfield that I feel like I'm probably just going to avoid for most of the season. Like, on a Showdown slate, obviously you can roster some of these guys, but like when the Bucs are on the main slate, I just don't really think I'm going to be rostering their backfield much because it's a three-headed monster. They've got Ronald Jones, they got Leonard Fournette, they added Giovanni Bernard. I don't like Fournette that much at 7K. He's going to be someone that I most likely just avoid at this price point. Michael Gallup, though, at 6,200, kind of right there with Antonio Brown. He's a cheaper receiver that I do have quite a bit of interest in. Obviously, he's the wide receiver 3 for the Cowboys, but he's going to get plenty of targets. I mean, his upside, his floor, I would say his upside, he still has a lot of upside. Like, Gallup can definitely break off a long touchdown catch. He can go for 100-plus yards, but his floor, it is a lot lower than CeeDee Lamb, than Amari Cooper. His targets are also not as high as those guys, but you look at the price point, he's not quite as expensive as Amari Cooper, as CeeDee Lamb. I do prefer to get up to Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb if I can. Michael Gallup at 6,200 is firmly in play for me as sort of a cheaper receiver option that does give you, plenty of upside. But by far, my favorite cheap receiver going to be Antonio Brown. 5,600 for Antonio Brown, in my opinion, just way too cheap. Antonio Brown, obviously he's not the elite wide receiver one that he used to be when he was with Pittsburgh, but this is still someone that has plenty of upside. He had a big game against Atlanta, a 15-target game last year. He can score touchdowns. He'll get targeted in the red zone. He's someone that I'm for sure going to be looking to on this Showdown slate. He's going to get double-digit targets, guy that I have a lot of interest in overall. 5,600, in my opinion, is just way too cheap, especially when you look at the price tags on Evans. 9,200 for Evans, 8,600 for Godwin. I don't know if I need to pay those price tags for those guys when I can get Antonio Brown down here at 5,600. You can also play him at captain. He's only 8,400 in the captain spot. We'll talk about some captains I do like on the Showdown slate. Antonio Brown for sure going to be one of the guys that I target. But then you got Gronk at 5,400. Gronk at this point, really, he's just touchdown or bust. Yeah, he's not going to be a guy that gets heavily targeted. You're not going to see Gronk get 8-9 targets on a weekly basis, but they will look to him in the red zone. If he scores a touchdown, you're probably going to need him. If he doesn't score a touchdown, it's likely that he's going to disappoint. I don't feel great about Gronk. I think I do prefer Antonio Brown. I think Antonio Brown gives you way more target upside. He gives you just way more upside overall. Gronk, in my opinion, is basically touchdown or bust. If you want to go to him at 5,400 as a cheaper, kind of pass catcher, that's fine. But I definitely straight up prefer Antonio Brown over Gronk on this slate. But then you got the Dallas tight ends. You got Blake Jarwin at 5,200. You got Dalton Schultz at 4,600. Blake Jarwin was injured for pretty much almost the entire season last year. He played in week 1, but he got injured in that game. So, coming into this season, what are we going to get from Blake Jarwin? I don't really know. How are they going to utilize him and Dalton Schultz? Schultz actually filled in pretty well for Jarwin last season whenever Jarwin was, for pretty much the entire season when Jarwin was injured. I expect Schultz to be involved. Maybe they run some 2 tight end sets. Maybe they kind of, just shuffle these guys in and out. I don't feel great about the Dallas tight ends. I think I prefer Gronk over the Dallas tight ends. Overall, the tight ends in this game I don't have a ton of interest in, but yeah, I don't think I have too much interest in Jarwin or Schultz. It's just, with both of them healthy, how are they going to utilize both those guys? We don't really know. At their price points, I'd rather just get to Gronk, who I think probably has, the same upside as those guys. If not, he's a lot more likely to score a touchdown than those 2 guys probably are. But then you have Ronald Jones at 5K. Ronald Jones, not really going to be used much in the passing game. Probably going to get 8 to 10 carries. I just don't really know if I'm going to really be going to these Tampa Bay, running backs. If I had to pick one, it probably would be Ronald Jones, especially because he is a lot cheaper than Fournette. But I think I'm probably just going to be avoiding these running backs overall. You got, Giovanni Bernard way down here at 2K. Maybe you could roster him. He's probably just going to be used in third down situations. He's mainly just going to be, a pass-catching running back. Could he, randomly catch a ball and score a touchdown? James White, we saw, obviously used to be used a lot in third down situations when he played with Tom Brady. Could Giovanni Bernard kind of be like Tom Brady's James White? Maybe that could be the case. But overall, this Tampa Bay backfield, I think I'm most likely going to just be avoiding on this Showdown slate. But we got the kickers and the defenses. I don't really dive too deep into these. The kickers, they give you a pretty safe floor. Most weeks or most games, you're going to get 8 to 10 points from the kickers. The kickers don't have as much upside as you would really want, but in high-scoring games, this game does have right now. It does have a 52 total. You could get a 14, 15-point game from one of the kickers if this does wind up being a high-scoring game. I don't mind going to one of the kickers normally. I don't roster both kickers. Normally, I don't roster kickers at captain either. But if you want to use them as just kind of value pieces to make your lineup work, totally fine with it. The defenses always, in my opinion, tend to be over-owned. Rarely do I roster the defenses on Showdown slates. And in a game like this, where I expect it to be high-scoring, where I don't expect there to be a ton of turnovers and just sloppy play, I think we're going to see a lot of points scored. I don't think I'm really going to be going to the defenses on this Showdown slate. So that's probably going to be an avoid for me. I think we've talked about mostly everyone. You got Tony Pollard at 4,200. He's probably going to get, 6 to 8 carries. He'll get a few targets in the passing game. He's going to be the backup behind Zeke. I don't feel great about Tony Pollard, but I guess he's fine as kind of a value option at 4,200. I'd rather probably just get up to like Gronk or AB if I can over Tony Pollard. But Pollard's fine. OJ Howard, 2,200. Did want to mention him as kind of a punt option. You know, he didn't play much last year. He only played for about 4 games before he got injured. But in the 4 games that he did play last season, I mean, he was kind of involved. 6 targets, 3 targets, 4, 6 targets. Like, for 2,200, you know, the ceiling on OJ Howard's not that high. He's going to have to score a touchdown, most likely, to get there. But at 2,200, if he gets 5 targets, he could definitely score a touchdown on one of those 5 targets. They could utilize him in the red zone. You know, he is a pretty athletic tight end. He is a pretty good receiving tight end, just overall. I don't mind him as a punt option at 2,200. If you want to go there, we obviously talked about Gio Bernard as well at 2K. But once you get past Gio Bernard, there's not much down here. I mean, Scotty Miller, he's basically like you're just hoping he catches like a deep ball or something. You know, you're hoping for like busted coverage and Scotty Miller catches a deep ball because that's really, you know, he's not going to run many routes. He's not going to be on the field for many of the snaps. He's cheap, but I don't think I'm going to go there. Same with like Tyler Johnson. I mean, he's basically their 5th string wide receiver. You're hoping that he gets on the field for a few snaps, runs a few routes, and maybe, you know, busted coverage or something, and he catches a long touchdown. But other than that, I think we've kind of touched on just about, you know, every playable option on this Showdown slate. So that kind of does it for the breakdown, guys. You know, talking about roster construction real quick, how I would look to kind of build out a lineup. You know, I mentioned it earlier. Definitely think Antonio Brown is my favorite captain overall in the Showdown slate. He's just way too cheap. 8,400 for Antonio Brown. You play him at captain. Obviously, he's someone that has upside. You still got 8,300 left per player. If I'm playing Antonio Brown at captain, then I definitely want to pair him with Tom Brady. I know that I mentioned that, you know, Dak Prescott was my preferred quarterback between the two, but if I'm rostering Antonio Brown and I'm assuming that, you know, he's going to be the winning captain, in order for him to be the winning captain, he's obviously going to have a really good game. He's going to have to score a lot of fantasy points. If he does that, that probably means that Tom Brady is also scoring a lot of fantasy points because Tom Brady is throwing those touchdowns to Antonio Brown. You know, pretty simple. So I would pair those two guys together. Antonio Brown, though, he's so cheap that you could probably still fit Dak Prescott into these builds. I mean, you still got 6,600 remaining per player for your last 3 spots. And we've talked about guys down here like you could play Gronk. You could easily fit in Michael Gallup. You can maybe go like Amari Cooper. Like if you played Amari Cooper, you'd have 5,800 left. Yeah, that would leave you enough to play like Michael Gallup and Gronk. I mean, you could easily make that build work. Or you could go Michael Gallup and like Ronald Jones. So that's kind of where I'm looking to on the Showdown slate. Like if I play in one lineup, I normally don't play one lineup. I usually play multiple lineups on these Showdown slates. But if I was playing one lineup, this is probably kind of the way I'd be starting. Antonio Brown at captain, pairing him with Tom Brady and kind of working from there. I think AB overall is my favorite captain, but there's other guys too, like Amari Cooper. I have some interest in. He'll definitely be, you know, towards the top of my list in terms of captain exposure. Normally, you want to play running backs and receivers at captain. Rarely do you see quarterbacks be the winning captain. Quarterbacks have a very high floor, but their ceiling is not quite as high as running backs and receivers. And especially this game with all the good receivers, Mike Evans, Godwin, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, like all these guys we've talked about. These are the guys you're going to want to have in the captain spot. I'm kind of going to just be mixing and matching my captain exposure across all those receivers that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, guys, I think that does it for the breakdown for the Showdown slate. Real quickly, do want to head back over to Prize Picks, talk about a few picks that I do like for this Thursday night game. You know, we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady. Both of them are currently projected for 20.5 fantasy points, and I mentioned it earlier. I like the passing in this game, or the passing attack in this game, more than the running backs. I think I'd be more likely to go over on the quarterbacks and actually go under on the running backs. But the quarterbacks I do like. 20.5 fantasy points for both Dak Prescott and Tom Brady, I feel like is a little bit too low of a projection for a game that has a 52 total, for a game that probably will be a shootout. I like going over on both the quarterbacks' fantasy points. And then, you know, we've talked about Antonio Brown. His projection currently is 12 fantasy points. That also, in my opinion, does feel a little bit too low. I like the over on Antonio Brown as well. You could do these 3 picks. You could tell me on these 3 picks, do a flex play. So, like, even if you don't get all 3 picks right, you would still make some money. You would still get, that would pay out 1.25x. If you get 2 of these 3 right, if you get all 3 right, that would pay out 2.25x. If you want to go for, you know, the riskier option where you have to hit all 3 entries or all 3 picks right, you could also do that, but that does have a higher payout. So it's a little bit riskier to do a power play, but it also does have a higher payout. you can kind of choose how you want to play these. But if you do go, do tail these 3 picks, do a 3-pick power play. Let's say you put 20 bucks on that, it would pay out 100. You would win 5x off that 20 bucks. So yeah, guys, check out Prize Picks if you haven't yet. Get you some entries in for this Thursday night game. They've got a ton of options on their board, whether it's fantasy points or if you want to do the player props, they've got all that as well. So use code NOAH when you sign up for Prize Picks. Link down below in the description. You'll get a 100% match on your first deposit. You deposit $100. They will match that. They'll give you additional $100 to play with. So you'll technically have $200 that you can play with for this Thursday night game. But that does it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys on Thursday night for the live stream, breaking down the slate once again, answering all your questions as always. But good luck. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.